Used our forearm. The reason for that is our forearm is meaty and muscular. So when I strike his forearm, it's actually a cushion. In reality, we'd want to come in and strike with a knuckle, which would actually paralyze the arm. In practice, you have to be careful because this muscle comes to an end here, and if you strike at the insertion point, you could actually rip the muscle. So we don't really want to strike it with the knuckle in practice. If you can make him let go with the back of the arm, if you put a knuckle in there, you can be pretty sure that you're going to do double the damage. So right now we're just showing a couple of ways to strike, but you could come in with the knuckle. If he grabbed opposite, we could even come in with our fist. So those that do karate, basic low block, releasing the arm to get out. We covered the first 3 points of the arm. We covered the rub, we covered the pressing point, and we covered the hitting point. The next 2 points we're going to cover are the most useful on the arms for several reasons. One, they can be pressed and struck. And number 2, depending on his arm position, they can always be accessed. For example, if he grabs low, I can use the low point. But if he grabs very high, it's a little awkward to use this point. Same thing with the center point. If he grabs here or grabs my elbow or grabs low, we can use the center point. But if he grabs very high, it's too awkward to get to. The next 2 points, whether he grabs high or whether he grabs low, they can be struck. I like to call these the anti-grappling points because no matter how somebody grabs you, if you know these 2 points, you will get out every single time. First point we're going to cover now is called lung 5. Lung 5 is on the inside of the radial bone, at the crease of the elbow, a little bit below. This can be pressed to bring him down, or it can be struck to do the same thing. Generally, we use thumb pressure to demonstrate where the points are and so you could learn where they are. Real situation, you're not necessarily going to have time to squeeze. And some people have very tight muscles. They can resist the squeezing. They cannot resist the striking. Now, we're going to take this from an upper grab just to show some variety. As we strike into this point, what we're going to be watching is this leg. As this comes down, the weight is going to come on this leg. Now, that's significant for 2 reasons. If the weight is on this leg, he can't kick me with that leg. If his weight is leaning forward like this, he can't kick me with the other leg. With his body turned this way, he can't punch me with that hand. His legs also become weak for a follow-up shot. His head is exposed and unprotected. So we have a situation where he's in front of us, and now he's sideways, and we're actually almost behind him. So from here, we could choose to follow up with the next sensitive point in the line, or lock him in place, or bring him down to the ground. An example of bringing him to the ground would be instead of rolling him into our stomach, we're going to go down with this one, we're going to sidestep. So as we hit, we bring him down, allowing us to pin him, control him on other points. Okay? Now, the points on the top of the arm, meaning this rub one, this hit one, and the one we're covering right now, all need to be struck towards you, not towards your opponent. So we're not going to hit his arm this way. You'll get some effect. But if it's struck in this direction, this is what brings him in the position we want. Now, we could use either arm to do it. We could use the right coming down, or we could use the left coming down. Generally, the way he grabs, if his arm is a little bit bent, it may be a little awkward to get this arm in there, so we use the right. Now, when we're using this point can be used to bring him in towards us, or in a multiple opponent situation, if we had an opponent like the Bob dummy behind us, we can put him between yourself and the next individual. So we use this inside point and the outside point, which we're going to cover next, to control his direction. Right here, I have an opportunity to use my right hand or my left hand. If I come to this point and use the right hand, I can bring him to me just to strike him. Or like I said, if there's more than one person, I could control his direction, maybe to put him between me and the next person and worry about somebody else. If there was a person on this side, the next point we're going to cover, we're going to let go for a second. When he makes a fist at the top of this bulge, we have 2 points here called large intestine 10 and 11. When it's squeezed, it causes pain. It causes the knee to buckle the same way. It causes the hand to open. Now, the advantage of this point is this point puts us behind him. This point needs to be struck in towards the bone, close to the joint, and it turns him for us this way. So now, if we had an opponent this way, we would strike it and bring him that way. So both points serve similar functions. It's just a matter of which direction we're going to use and which hand we use. Generally, this point will be struck with the right hand to set him up with a technique such as a high block. And this point will be struck with the left to set up the back of his body going this way. Okay, the next point we're going to be working up the arm as we've been going. So now we're going to pass the elbow joint. We're going to be using a point that's called Ha-Tu. If he makes a muscle between the bicep and the tricep muscle, about 1.5 inches up, there's a little hole there. This needs to be pressed in and down simultaneously. So what we generally use is we push the thumb in, and then with the pad of the thumb, we press down, giving us this control over him. We use this to control his shoulder. So if he's grabbed, usually we do this off a double grab, but so that we can see the point, we're just going to release this one for now. We would reach under, the elbow would lay in the palm, the thumb would go in, and we would pull him into us this way. So we're controlling the shoulder joint. If you continue lifting, you actually have a key lock or a shoulder lock on him. This point can also be struck with the knuckles this way or coming in this way, and it has the effect of numbing the arm the entire length from that point down. This point is called heart 3. So the thumb goes in, we squeeze. Now when we squeeze a point, you can see his body tensed up. That's his reaction. What he does next is up to me. If I move him this way, he goes this way. If I pull him in, he goes this way. If I bring him down, he comes down. So when you strike a point, the point injects the pain and the control, but your directioning, your control of your arm depends on where he's going to go. A point that we use in conjunction with this, we're going to show it on the other arm, is called large intestine 12. That point lies between his bicep and his forearm. You're going to find a little hollow pocket here. Again, it can be pressed with the thumb, or it can be grabbed with the fingers to pull. If you had a large hand, you can actually put the fingers here and the thumb in on this one, allowing you to get both points, causing more pain and more control. Because remember, more than one point causes more pain. So if possible, we always try to strike at least 2 or more. So when he grabs, we follow the same thing with the elbow. The elbow's in the center of the palm, and we let the fingers loop over. As the fingers loop over, when we pull, the fingertips dig into this point, bending his arm and pulling him into us. Now, if he grabs us with one arm, we always have to be aware of the fact that he can punch you with this arm. The danger is not here, the danger is here. So our eyes are focused on this, and whatever we do, we have to do it quick to prevent him from striking. When he grabs us with 2 arms, he cannot punch us any longer, and we don't need to move as fast. And rather than taking one arm and trying to overcome 2 arms, we can actually sneak under his line of sight and control this way. So as a general rule, if there are 2 arms on you, it's okay to use a grappling type motion with the points. If there's one arm on you, we want to strike it because it's quicker and we're defending against this arm at the same time. The 2 points we're going to cover are going to be on the back of his arm. The way we're going to get to that is we're going to turn his arm over. Everything we do involves pressure points, so we're going to actually use a point to allow us to bend his wrist and grab him back. The point we'll be using is the hot point that we did originally. We're going to let our knuckles dig into it, which bends his wrist, allowing us to grab him, bringing him in. Now, on the back of his arm, the 2 points, 1 inch above the point of the elbow, we have a rub point, and halfway between the elbow and the shoulder, right in the hole of the horseshoe of the tricep, is the hit point. The points are used interchangeably. We're going to start with the rub point. The rub point can be rubbed with the knuckles to bring him down easily, or a more preferred way, so you don't slide off, just hold that there for a second, is to use this little knob of the ulna bone. It's nice and hard. We lay it flat, and when we go like this, remember about projecting through, and we bring him right down. Okay? Now, for some reason, you do this one, and you don't get the reaction you're looking for. What do? We move right up to the next point, and again, using the back of the arm for practice, but using the fist or the knuckles in reality, and we bump the arm to put him down. Now, depending on the attack, in a wrist grab, I can rub. But if he was coming in with a punching attack, as the punch came in, I'd want to hit to put it down, because I wouldn't have time to look for that rub point. So the points work together. You could rub, you can hit, you could use a combination. If you hit, maybe you miss, you come back, you use the rub point. So you need to know both of them. 1 inch above the elbow, it needs to be rubbed towards the hand, in and down. And the focus has to be through. Right now he's feeling it, but I'm just on the surface. I'm just giving him pain. I want to focus from here to here. So my hand goes down, and he goes down, and he comes back up. When you rub this point, it's tricking the body into thinking that the elbow is broken. Because it thinks the elbow is broken, it wants to relax all of the muscles in the area to prevent further dislocation or damage. And it's at that point that when you press down, it allows you to actually break or dislocate the elbow. So you're using the body's natural protective mechanism against itself. Generally, when you're using the rub point, most of the effect, or all of it actually, is going to be on the elbow joint itself. When you strike the hit point, you can be damaging the elbow, but you can also be dislocating the shoulder. That will entirely depend on his musculature and which part of his body is tighter. If he has a very tight shoulder and you hit it, that's where the damage is going to be. If his shoulder is loose but his arms are very strong and you hit it, that's where the damage is going to be. And if you give it a severe shot, you can damage both of them.
So again, when you practice it, right now I'm holding this arm still and just working with one arm. In reality, as this went down, this would be coming up, causing opposing forces, and it would do much more damage in that sense. Okay? We have a couple of points left that we're going to cover that are in the same territory as ones that we've done already. Meaning we're going to go back to the wrist. We had our rub point. We had our press point. Directly between them, we have another squeeze point. This point can be hit to make the hand open, or we can use thumb pressure to dig in and bring him down this way. Basically, this point serves the same effect as the other 2 points. It's just another option, something else that you can do. Now, as we get closer to the hand, we have 2 points on the hand that we use to release grips. One is between the thumb and the forefinger. One is between the pinky and the ring finger. If he's grabbed between the ring and the pinky finger, 1/3 of the way up, you're going to feel a hole there. All pressure points are in a hole. This can be rubbed with the knuckle, or it can be with the knuckle, the pointy part, struck to make his hand open very quickly. If he was grabbing with the other hand and we couldn't get to that one, the other point is between the thumb knuckle and the index knuckle, halfway, right on the bone of the index knuckle. And the same thing, it can be pressed that way, or it can be pressed with an index finger to control him and follow him up somewhere else. So again, this leaves you with different options. Some people will find certain points just work better for them. Some people will find certain points they just can't get the hang of. As long as you know what the point affects and what it's going to do to the person, it doesn't matter which way you go with it. What we're going to cover in the next section is how the points combine with each other. So far we've been doing 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time that way. When we start combining points, you're going to see the effect is multiplied, and generally you have 2 arms, you want to always be using as much of your body against your opponent as possible. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have him there and to hit him with 1 arm and this arm do nothing, when this could be weakening another point for the next blow. Okay, we're going to work on some combination of points and how they actually work together. For example, the point we just did, the one in the center of the arm, that's actually called pericardium 6. I don't think I named it before. When you press this point, his body starts to dip forward. But let's say this was the best effort I can get, and maybe this isn't enough. I want to add more pain. At the same time that I press this one, we're going to add this one and bring him down very easily. So now instead of using strength and using force, we're just adding more spots that we hit. The more spots that you hit, the less force that you need. When we grab him, we don't want to just grab with a regular grip. This will give us control, but we're not activating any pressure points right now. If we use what we call the eagle claw grip, we draw the fingers back, and this thumb knuckle automatically catches into this point, this way. And these 3 fingers, the index, the middle, and the ring finger, catch into this groove here, guaranteeing that you're going to get that lung point. So now, grabbing this way is different, you can see, than doing this, because I'm curling. I let the fingers dig into the groove, this is here, and I squeeze. Now, right now I'm squeezing and I'm not controlling him. To control him, I arc the wrist and pull the pinky towards me, this way. Now, the reason for such an effect is I'm actually on 2 points instead of just being on 1. So now, anytime he grabs me, I automatically start my combinations with 2 points. If he decides to punch with the other arm, now I have 3 points, and I can follow up somewhere else. But if he doesn't, when I come to my next point, he's coming in. Whether it's the lung point or the heart point on the inside, we lock here, and we squeeze here, and he comes in. Much easier with a lot less effort. Now, real situation, again, we don't always squeeze. He grabs, maybe I'm going to strike the 2 points simultaneously, bringing him in, and for the follow-up. So if I want to speed things up, instead of squeezing, we just hit 2 spots. Or we hit 2 spots this way, and we bring them that way to follow up. The final point we're going to cover on the arms has one specific use, and it's called the lower forearm disarm point. Whether an opponent's holding a knife, a gun, or a stick, we want to use this point to make him release it, and there are a couple of reasons for that. If his knife is coming in, and we strike one of the other points, as it comes forward, the knife may end up actually falling on me. The point that we're going to use is opposite the upper hit point, so it's inside this bone on the bottom. Whether you're on the outside or whether you're on the inside, what you're going to pay attention to is the direction that the weapon falls, which is towards him. Now, there's another thing that this one does. When we strike the bottom of the arm, the wrist is going to bend and weaken. When the wrist bends, what did we learn from before? The hand opens. If the hand opens, when we're using a handgun, the trigger cannot be pulled. All right? This is a rubber gun, but if you had a real working model and you struck one of the upper points, he would release the gun, but before he released it, his finger would twitch and he would pull the trigger. So if I was here and I hit him, he would let go, but maybe he would shoot somebody that we wouldn't want to get shot. So the same thing we're going to apply by coming underneath. It just makes the wrist open, the gun drops. There's no chance of the trigger being pulled. So again, halfway between here and here, the muscle comes in, inside the bone. And striking area should be your radial bone, this bone on the top. So we're just going to do it slow, shooting up this way. If you're on the outside, you're coming slightly in because it's on the inside. If you're on the inside, you're going to turn it a little bit and come from underneath. And as you do it, the wrist is going to be forced forward, which makes sure that the weapon goes that way.